Erika Arlee and Kristi Ray are the co-founders of Honeyhead Films, a female-led production company riding high on the critical success of their first feature film, A Song for Imogene. It's the story of a down-on-her-luck musician named Cheyenne, who has to deal with layer upon layer of emotional trauma while trying to free herself from an abusive relationship. It's an award-winning representation of the Honeyhead Films mission to tell strong stories from an often overlooked perspective. Erika and Kristi, welcome to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast.
Thanks for having us,
so
Jon.
much.
First, congratulations to the response to A Song for Imogene. It is so well-deserved. Erika, you wrote and directed the film. Tell me about the response. What's it been like for you?
It's been truly a pleasure, Jon. I mean, this was a, slow burn indie drama that puts women, in the foreground, so to speak, of a cinematic experience for the audience, which I think is just less common, in our industry.
The story's feeling universal to audiences outside of our region has meant a lot as a creative producer on the project. The film is highly personal to both Erika and myself. So as an actress, it's kind of a vulnerable situation when you're watching the film with a live audience, standing in the Q&A and hearing people talk about their own experiences. It's been very telling that there's just been a gap in storytelling to explore women's issues in this way where they're often overlooked in the South.
Erika, of all of the awards in the positive press, world premiere in Bentonville, best feature film at the Rhode Island Film Festival, sold out 2 at Cucaloris in your hometown, best narrative feature at the Oxford Film Festival. Does one of those mean any more on a higher shelf in Erika's home there than the others, or is it all just, hey, thank you, good night?
I mean, all of those experiences and festivals have been such a blessing. I mean, our hometown premiere at Cucaloris really stands out for me, selling out Bailey and Hall and then selling out our follow-up screening at Django's, with people still waiting in line on standby to try to get in. And the reception there, people cheered for us. Like, that was amazing. That was such a wonderful feeling. And especially because not just this film, I mean, this film is crowd-funded, so, in part. And so it really was, our community owns this film as much as we do in certain ways, and was such a huge part of making this happen.
As the lead character, though, Kristi, you mentioned this a second ago and you touched on it, but I want to delve into this. Have you gotten feedback from people who were in Cheyenne's shoes?
In every single screening, there's always someone. And it may not be someone that looks like me. It may not be a young woman. Sometimes it's a man. Sometimes it's an elderly person, who has experienced the kind of subtle emotional manipulation that this film explores. I would say more than one at every screening so far to come up to us to say, this is my story too. And I've never seen myself portrayed or my situation portrayed on camera, and thank you. Thank you for making this movie.
Erika Arlee and Kristi Ray, you're 2 of the most talented filmmakers in southeastern North Carolina, co-founders of Honeyhead Films. I appreciate you taking the time and sitting down for my one-on-one podcast. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jon. I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you, Jon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jon Evans, and welcome to another episode of One-on-One. I'm honored to have Erika Arlee and Kristi Ray as my guests this week on the podcast. They are the co-founders of Honeyhead Films, a Wilmington production company that has a mission of telling strong stories from the often overlooked female perspective. The 2 right now are riding high on the critical success of their first feature film. It's called A Song for Imogene, which has won awards at film festivals all across the United States. Erika and Kristi are kindred spirits. They share a deep desire for movie making, and they were brought together, strangely enough, by Craigslist. Erika and Kristi, welcome to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast.
Thanks for having us, Jon.
Thank you so much.
First, congratulations to the response to A Song for Imogene. It is so well-deserved, and being from Wilmington and seeing the response that a Wilmington-based organization like yourself that you're getting is just tremendous. Erika, you wrote and directed the film. Tell me about the response. Has it been overwhelming? Has it been surprising? Has it been vindicating? What's it been like for you?
It's been truly a pleasure, Jon. I mean, this was a slow burn indie drama that puts women in the foreground, so to speak, of a cinematic experience for the audience, which I think is just less common, in our industry. And so we weren't totally sure what the reception would be like. We felt like we had made a strong film. We had made a film with a lot of heart that meant a lot to Kristi and I, but you never know, apart from your immediate community and our immediate audience that we knew was there, because we have had such great support from our local and regional community throughout the process of making this film. We weren't sure what communities outside of Wilmington and North Carolina who weren't as familiar with Honeyhead would think of the film. So it's been really humbling and encouraging to have the reception we've had for this project. It's been really inspiring, and we're really grateful that the story has touched so many people and made so many other folks, men and women, feel seen in their own experiences with the same types of issues that Cheyenne, the protagonist who Kristi plays, is going through.
Okay, Kristi, what's it been like for you on screen, but also being one of the driving forces behind making this film?
It's actually been an incredibly rewarding experience. What Erika was saying about this story feeling universal to audiences outside of our region has meant a lot as a creative producer on the project. The film is highly personal to both Erika and myself. So as an actress, it's kind of a vulnerable situation. When you're watching the film with a live audience, standing in the Q&A and hearing people talk about their own experiences, it's been very telling that there's just been a gap in storytelling to explore women's issues in this way where they're often overlooked in the South. Something I love to talk about the project is how it was made. It's a miracle that any film gets made these days, or just in general. Making a movie is really, really challenging. But the process of making this movie I'm really proud of, and the crew behind it being almost entirely from North Carolina and our cast being almost entirely from this region as well. It's a true testament to the raw talent that we have above and below the line here in Wilmington and the Southeast region. And I love the process that Honeyhead employed when we were deciding who was going to come along on this journey with us to make this project. It being our debut feature film, Erika and I really took a chance on a lot of people. Our department heads were all first time in their positions on a feature film as well, and they took a chance on us. So there was a lot of collective trust there, and it was a beautiful experience. We had 7 collegiate internships. We were in part financed by a crowdfunding effort, so our community came together to help make this project happen. We were supported in earnest by rental houses and vendors across Wilmington who genuinely want to see Honeyhead succeed. And that mission and that energy has just stuck with the project through its now distribution and film festival circuit. So we've just had so much good positive energy around A Song for Imogene, and I'm really proud to see it every time we get to sit and watch it at a film festival, or meet with someone like you to talk about the project. It just warms my heart and makes me really proud of the process of making the project as well.
As the lead character, though, Kristi, you mentioned this a second ago and you touched on it, but I want to delve into this. Have you gotten feedback from people who were in Cheyenne's shoes? Have you gotten people, victims of domestic violence, folks like that come through and say, thank you for bringing this out to light, you're giving us a voice?
Yes, absolutely. Erica touched on this a little bit, but in every single screening, there's always someone. And it may not be someone that looks like me. It may not be a young woman. Sometimes it's a man. Sometimes it's an elderly person, who has experienced the kind of subtle emotional manipulation that this film explores. I think it's important to let viewers know, people who haven't seen the movie yet, that abuse is not so black and white. And Erica does a really beautiful job in the writing of this project to really portray what it's like to be gaslit and what it's like to have these, subtle, subtle cycles of emotional and mental manipulation that sometimes you can't put your finger on if you can actually define it as abuse. But people watching this film finally feel like they can put their finger on what happened to them. And maybe it's their current experience, maybe it's a past experience that becomes validated in a way. They are seen and they felt heard watching this film because they realize that it's okay. It starts cathartic conversations, and it's been a really healing process, even for members of our crew who have had an Alex, so to speak. Mm-hmm. The antagonist is called Alex in the movie, and so we've had a lot of, I would say, more than one at every screening so far, to come up to us to say, this is my story too, and I've never seen myself portrayed or my situation portrayed on camera, and thank you for making this movie.
There are nuances in it. The scene where you're in the closet and you're getting the money out, and all the other times when you're trying to escape. But what got me was the look in your eye as that character, because it's a cross of fear, it's a cross of determination, and it's a cross of, pardon the language, but what the hell am I going to do now? You know what I mean? And the look in your eye, I think, sold it to me. This is just Jon Evans here. Sold it to me over and above a lot of the other things you were doing, specifically in that scene. And I wanted to compliment you because there's not everybody that can sell it with their eyes. And to me, you did.
Oh, thank you, Jon. That means a lot. I appreciate hearing that kind of feedback. Yesterday, we were taking a road trip to Raleigh. We were shooting another project, and Erika and I were having a conversation about what we love about filmmaking versus theater. And that kind of reminds me of that. Growing up, I did a lot of stage acting, and it wasn't until I was 17 years old that I discovered filmmaking. And what I appreciate so much about it is the subtleties of these little bitty micro movements and blocking, and the way you can evoke emotion without really saying anything. That's something that is just so beautiful in filmmaking. And I think that kind of acting and that kind of subtlety, it's probably written in the script, that Cheyenne glances to the door in this way. And at this point, I don't remember, but that's part of our branding as Honeyhead, is those like real human experiences being captured on screen, to just tell emotionally generous stories that people can relate to and that are believable and authentic.
Yeah, but if you can talk with your eyes, that to me is a gift and a talent. And again, it's Jon's takeaway, but that's what really kind of jumped off the screen to me, specifically in that scene. I thought it was a great piece of work by you. That's got to be cool, though, when it's almost like a book, an author who writes one book and all of a sudden somebody else wants another story from James Bond or whatever the character is. To create that want and desire for more is what a lot of us get into the people business for, to inform or to entertain, and to have that built in and somebody come up and say, okay, what's next? What are you going to do? How are you going to entertain me next? Has to be really a cool feeling.
Yeah, it was surprising to be honest, because I wrote the short film for Kristi and I to play sisters. So I played the sister, the Janelle character in the short film, because I was more focused on acting at that time. So we just had gotten to know each other as friends and as colleagues and actresses, and we were like, wouldn't it be so fun to play some like real, authentic, gritty female characters, because we never get to audition for those types of roles, and it's always sort of these one-dimensional waitress or the hot girl at the party or the nagging girlfriend or whatever. And so it's like, I mean, truly, hot girl number one at the party.
Girl number one, girl number two. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Girl number one, girl number two, and so we just really wanted to play some women with depth and breadth, and women that we knew, that we had grown up around.
Right.
And so I wrote this film, and we shot it on no budget, one hot day in August in rural southeastern North Carolina, not really thinking anything would come of it, to be totally honest. I mean, and like Kristi said, we were a little surprised by the audience demand for these characters, because they were just for us. We really did it for us and to fulfill a need that we saw and a gap we saw in our industry. And then when we took it out to festivals, we realized, a lot of other people see and feel this gap as well, and maybe we should do something about it.
I often get asked sometimes, what's the favorite story that you've covered? What's the most favorite story that I've done? And I've been in this business now 40 years. I can't remember exactly all of them. But I'm going to ask you a similar question, Erika. Of all of the awards in the positive press, world premiere in Bentonville, best feature film at the Rhode Island Film Festival, sold out 2 at Cucaloris in your hometown, best narrative feature at the Oxford Film Festival. Does one of those mean any more on a higher shelf in Erika's home there than the others, or is it all just, hey, thank you, good night?
I mean, all of those experiences and festivals have been such a blessing. I mean, our hometown premiere at Cucaloris really stands out for me, selling out Bailey and Hall and then selling out our follow-up screening at Django's, with people still waiting in line on standby to try to get in. And the reception there, people cheered for us. Like, that was amazing. That was such a wonderful feeling. And especially because not just this film, I mean, this film is crowdfunded, so, in part. And so it really was, our community owns this film as much as we do in certain ways, and was such a huge part of making this happen. So we owe a lot to the Wilmington community, and then the Honeyhead community at large, which, goes from New York to California. So I think just bringing it back here to the community that really championed our creative careers from the inception of Honeyhead, and being able to give them something that is an award-winning film and reflects the work that comes out of our region. It reflects crew and talent from our region and locations, that are right in our backyard, was really just such a momentous occasion, and really something that I'll always remember. Sitting in that theater and feeling proud, not just of Kristi and myself for what we did, but for everyone who was there, and getting to celebrate that moment with us, really. So that was one for the shelf. Yeah, for sure. That was really beautiful.
Okay, Kristi.
I love what you said, Erika, about, I'm sorry, Jon,
go ahead.
Want to jump in about the community owning the film. I think that's so beautiful and so truthful. And I agree with Erika that the Cucaloris premiere, nothing will ever top that. It was just, a night to remember. Having our entire cast and crew up there on stage with us was just such a beautiful experience. And what has followed since November has been really beautiful as well, because this community does recognize the talent, and they recognize that the film is of high quality, but not just by a Wilmington standard, because it's winning awards in other festivals and other markets, playing in competition at Atlanta, winning an award at Oxford. Those were all, those experiences also belong to that community too. And so it's been equally as rewarding to just keep seeing how far it's going, and how far this little movie that can make it. It's just, every time there's an update, I can't wait to share with the community at large.
You two met, strangely enough, on Craigslist. I think that's a fascinating story. And when you tell people we met on Craigslist, it's not usually a business meeting on Craigslist many times, but that's how the two of you got together, right, Kristi?
This is true. You've really done your research, John. I'm impressed.
I try to do. Oh, I've
The
got more. I've got
Craigslist,
more here. Believe me.
yeah. The Craigslist casting call is what we call it, this like fated day. I actually moved to Wilmington in late 2014, as did Erika, and she decided that she was going to write and direct her first short film. She comes from a theater background. So she put a casting call on Craigslist, God knows why, and I, new to the area, was looking for some acting work. I wouldn't recommend it to any young actresses out there. It was just a different time, the early
Right.
2000s in that way. But I do remember the feeling of submitting for the project and getting my sides, so the audition materials, and reading a script that was written by a woman for the first time. And I remember how different it felt. I remember that the characters finally had depth and dimension, and that the dialogue felt like something I would actually say. And I was so excited to be cast in Erica's movie. Because everything was done online, I had no idea that she was my age, that she would become my best friend and my business partner and my maid of honor and, like the auntie to my babies and like all of the legacy of our life that has happened in the last 10 years. I had no clue. I thought she was like many years my senior by the way she presented, just through email, but we met that day on set and had an instant friendship. We became fast friends and eventually roommates, and then started our company after she wrote that short film that we were talking about earlier on the podcast. And so Honeyhead was just born from like an organic experience of realizing that there was more to it, that we wanted to write our own narrative and pave our own way, and no one was going to give us these opportunities. We just needed to make them for ourselves.
Yeah, I think we've never come at the industry or anything like that from a place of trying to keep it elusive what we're doing. I think we've always just been ourselves, and we've always been striving to create transparency where we felt like we didn't have any. And as young people, I think a lot of the gatekeepers, out in Hollywood like to keep things, they like to shelter, the resources and the knowledge that they have. And we're big advocates of lifting while climbing. And when we get to the door, holding it open for other people to come in. So I think that's just part of our brand. We've always just been ourselves, we didn't go to film school, so we just are self-taught in this way that I think just allows for that, and people like to see that because it makes it feel a little less daunting. An industry that has historically been pretty sheltered from the rest of the world, I think it just helps to live in that state of authentic.
Okay. The top performing artist in the world right now is Taylor Swift. Caitlin Clark took the country by storm in the NCAA women's basketball tournament, raised the Final Four to huge ratings. Greta Gerwig directed the highest grossing film last year, Barbie. All super successful women leading parts of society today. Why then do women only account for 26% of entertainment-related jobs? Is this a turning point, do you think?
I would hope so. Yeah, I would truly hope that we're seeing a shift. I think that female leaders that are able to shake it up, specifically, monetarily, I think that the powers that be, they want to see numbers behind, what drives that. So they want to see. It's really exciting to me that you have Greta Gerwig coming out, Taylor Swift coming out, Beyonce coming out, on these like kind of mega tours of their own art, and driving economic growth and development in their industries is really exciting to me, because again, that's what people are looking for if you really want to get down to it, and you're not talking about a moral landscape and a diversity landscape. If you're really just talking brass tacks and numbers, then women are proving to do that as well. So that's
Right.
really to me, and I hope that that people continue to put women in positions of decision-making power, creative power, and respecting them as people that can not just tell interesting stories and create viable art, but like I said, drive economic impact, because that's really what's going to convince the powers that be to let women have a seat at the table.
What about you, Kristi? What do you think about this possible turning point in these industries and in society, really?
I'll add to that it really comes down to two things. It's the consumers who are proving that female-led work is commercially viable, whether that's in sports or music or, filmmaking and the cinema experience that we're talking about today. Showing up at the box office, turning on your television, getting those user ratings high, those viewer ratings. We need to prove that we care about what women are doing in the world. And the other thing that comes to mind as Erika and I are pitching our next project, which is a female-led post-apocalyptic action thriller, we are coming up against, I wouldn't say against, but I'd say we're coming up on a lot of really interesting information about making sure that there is a female DP, there is a female director, it is written by a woman. It's, as far as filmmaking goes, these Hollywood A-list actresses, they don't want to work on projects necessarily unless there's a woman attached in some capacity. It's now kind of like a make or break for them. And so we find ourselves in a position of extreme leverage at this point, because so many women are realizing on the heels of like the Me Too movement and all the negative things that we've had to overcome as women, but also all the wonderful stories that are being told and discovered by female voices. They're all gravitating towards these projects. And so they're getting the green light when they attach a female director or a female writer comes up with a great script that is able to attract A-list female talent to the project. So coming from a star-driven perspective and the consumer-driven perspective, those working in tandem are just going to keep furthering this agenda, which I feel really passionate about.
It's a topic that a lot of people are interested in. Obviously, people have high regards for it. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a great score. You've gotten critical acclaim all across the country. Erika Arlee and Kristi Ray, you're two of the most talented filmmakers in southeastern North Carolina, co-founders of Honeyhead Films. The cool thing about this is I'm going to be able to say I had them on the podcast before they blew up and before they became huge. Erika and Kristi, thanks for taking the time. You guys are so busy. I appreciate you taking the time and sitting down for my one-on-one podcast. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I truly enjoyed it.
Thank you, John. This has been a real pleasure. It's so nice to just get to sit down and take some time and reflect. I think it's really nice what you're doing, and this has been a great conversation.
A big thank you to Erika Arlee and Kristi Ray for taking time out of their very busy schedule and joining me for this week's podcast interview. You can learn more about their company, Honeyhead Films, by going to honeyheadfilms.com, and you can learn more about their first feature-length film, the award-winning A Song for Imogene. You can go to imogenemovie.com. And you can also follow them on social media. They're very active on Instagram and other social media platforms. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please follow and subscribe to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. We really do care what you think about our interviews. And the more reviews and ratings we have from friends like you, the higher we'll be listed on those apps. The better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm Jon Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of One-on-One.